Alright, so in this video I'm going to break down how we're able to achieve $1,000 new cash per every single booked call through this DM setting funnel. I'm going to break down everything. Now keep in mind, this is for every single booked call. This is not call taken, this is not call closed, this is not revenue, none of that stuff. It's new cash for every single call that we book, as you can see in the screenshots right here. Now what we're going to go over in this video is the proof, the DM setter funnel, the metrics and the data reports and how we do our tracking. We're going to reverse engineer the numbers behind it. I'm going to show you how to set your daily KPIs, and then we're going to troubleshoot all the problems that are going to arise along the way, and I'm going to give you the solutions to those problems. So if you're new to the channel, I want to take a second to introduce myself. My name is George Nita. I've generated over $50 million in high-ticket sales through DM setters specifically in the last 3.5 years. And I run a company called dmsetting.com where we're generating and managing over $2 million per month right now in cash collected with a process that I'm about to share here for our clients combined. You can head over to our website. You probably recognize some of the names that we're working with, some of the results that we've been able to achieve for some of our clients where we're allowed to share those results publicly. Is Razvan Partnership, we help them go from $125,000 a month to $600,000 per month in less than 8 months. Rainmaker Family, where we help them add an extra $2.5 million a year within the first 3 months of working together. Bastion Slot, where we went from $60,000 to $500,000 a month within the first 5 months of launching a new B2C offer. Alexi Michael, where we went from $30,000 a month to $250,000 a month by leveraging all of his followers right here through the DM setter funnel. And then lastly, Paul Hilsey, where we went from $190,000 a month to $470,000 record month with the DM setter funnel within the first 5 months of working together. Now that being said, I want to move over to the funnel and just walk you through the funnel. I have a couple of other videos on this channel where I break down the funnel more in depth, but I just want to give you a general understanding of it. So now there's two main ways that we drive traffic. So we have inbound conversations and then we have outbound conversations. And I'm going to break down what each of those means in a second. So inbound conversations, the classic Instagram post that you're very well familiar with is stuff like this. Just comment the word me and I'll show you how you can do this. Comment the word how and I'm going to send you a guide. Comment this word and I'm going to send you this resource and so on and so forth. So those are feed posts that are call to actions that are meant to drive leads in the inbox. So people would go in, they would comment just like this and they would have ManyChat, pick up the comment, send the resource and then initiate a conversation with the lead right away. Same thing on the stories, right? So we have 3 resources that we promote on the stories. If you want this, message me the word video, message me the word ready, message me the word resources. I'm sure you're well familiar with how all of this works. And then lastly, we have outbound DMs where we initiate conversations with the new followers, with the people that watch the stories, with the people that like the posts, that don't opt in or that don't message us through one of those call to action. Now, this is a great way to generate extra traffic because if you have an audience and you haven't really monetized it yet, this is an amazing opportunity to go in and really extract a lot of cash from your audience. This is exactly what we did with Alexi. We really didn't have a lot of inbounds here. We just leveraged his following and made a whole lot of money within pretty short period of time. So it's a big lever that you can pull here. Now the way it looks like, you'd go over to followers, you'd see a bunch of the followers that you have, you'd go through them, you'd vet them out a little bit, you'd look for a good profile picture, a good name, and then you would send something along those lines here. You can pause the video and you can read it if you want to. Now what all this does is it generates leads that then go into ManyChat, which is our main platform where we have all of our DM setters. We typically have about 3 or 4 DM setters depending on the offer, depending on the volume on each account. So we really need a tool like ManyChat to not only capture all those people in here that comment through the call to actions in a timely manner with speed to lead, but then also make sure we're able to handle all of the opportunity that we're generating through the inbound efforts and then through the outbound efforts in a timely manner and make sure there's no missed opportunity and make sure there's no sacrifices on our speed to lead. If you take a look at the timelines here, if you take a look at the timestamps, you're going to see we are moving very fast. This is just an example of one of the clients that we're working with. You can see how dynamic this is. There's probably 30 or 40 or maybe even 50 conversations here in just the 10 minutes that I've spent just kind of scrolling through this and taking a couple of screenshots. So this is what it typically looks like. Obviously, we'd have some of the people that would have to sort through, like the third world countries and so on and so forth, until we're only left with the really good people. Now, what we do here, as soon as someone comes into ManyChat, is we take them through our DM flow. Now, I have another video on the channel. After you watch this, you can head over to the channel and you can find the video where I break down the entire flow with scripts, with messages. There's a Google Doc in the description of that doc as well that you can just go and copy and implement right into your business. So I'm not going to go too in depth into the scripting because again, as I said, there's another video covering that on this channel. What I'm going to show you instead is the framework. So the first thing that we do is we ask people where they're based out of. We want to get their location because this is the initial qualified. If it's a first world country or a second world country, depending on the type of offer that we work with, then that means it's a qualified lead. We move forward. If it's a third world country, we might have some sort of downsell or free resources that we send them to, and then we finalize the conversation right then and there to not waste the efficiency of the DM setters and to make sure they're speaking to the right leads. Immediately after we get their location, considering that they're qualified or from a country that we consider qualified, we would move on and ask what their motivation is, what has them reaching out, or what had them follow the profile, or what inspired them to, engage with the profile, depending on whether they came from a story, from an outbound, to a follower, from an inbound, etc., etc. From there, after we get their motivation, what we're going to do is we're going to explain the business opportunity. This is typically the B2C flow that we're following. We're going to explain the business opportunity via a voice note. Why are we doing a voice note? Two main things. Number one, it sparks curiosity because it shows in a different format than Instagram. On the phone, when they pull up the inbox and they see the new messages, it's not just highlighted in white bold text, but it's the little blue button that makes it more likely for them to press it and open the conversation, which means it's more likely that they actually listen to or get back to what we have to say and not ghost us. The second thing is it creates a lot of compliance and it creates a lot of trust and it creates a personal connection where the lead feels like they're speaking with the business owner. So we explain the business opportunity via a voice note. From there, if they're interested, which in 95% of the cases they are interested, we're going to talk about their current situation, what they do for work, and we're going to talk about their desired situation, whether that is to supplement their income, replace their income, quit their 9-to-5, travel the world. What this allows us to do is it allows us to do a very soft income qualification. Now, just as an example here, let's say you're talking to someone, they say, yeah, I work this job in IT, and then we would ask them, cool, so is the goal to replace your job or to just build an additional source of income? And then typically they're going to say, my goal is to replace my job, I want to have freedom, da 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 da. Cool, so how much would you need to make from this business opportunity for you to be able to match or exceed your current income that you have right now with your job? So then they'd say, oh, I need to make 6K per month from YouTube automation, from e-com, from like whatever the model is. And then we know that lead is likely making about $6,000 a month. So that's our soft income qualification right there. We typically don't do much more qualification outside of this in the DMs. We have the booking form that does that, but more on that in a second. After we cover this, we're gonna send what we call a results video. So this is again a selfie video from the business owner that shows some of their personal results that they've achieved with whatever the opportunity is. And then it showcases the client results and some client testimonials. This is typically below 60 seconds, again, just to keep it very fast paced. Now, immediately after the results video, we're gonna propose the call and then we're gonna get them booked in. So simply put, that's pretty much the funnel from a first point of contact with a lead opting into a resource or receiving an outbound DM to them turning into a booked call. Now, there's obviously best practices that we follow after we book in calls to maximize show rate, maximize nurturing, and I cover those in other videos on my channel. Now, moving forward, I want to talk about metrics, I want to talk about end-of-day reports, and I want to talk about tracking, and I want to show you how we do all of that. Now, the metrics that we're tracking are the following. So we're tracking new inbound conversations, we're tracking new outbound conversations, outbound responses, follow-up messages, calls proposed, links sent, total calls booked, and then sales calls booked. Now, you might be wondering what's the difference between total calls booked and sales calls booked. Typically, what we do, again, because of the way we're not very heavy on qualification in the front end and the DMs, we might book, let's say, 10 people, and then based on the answers in the booking form, we might find out that only 7 of them are qualified, right? So we would sometimes have sales calls booked or total calls booked, and then qualified calls booked or sales calls booked. So it's really however you want to name it. That's typically what we track here. So we can also see, hey, if we typically have a 7 out of 10 qualification ratio on the calls that we book, or 70% of the calls that we book are qualified, but then 1 week we book the same 10, but then only 2 are qualified, what happened? It allows us to go in and troubleshoot, because it's likely a marketing thing that's holding us back or that's preventing us from putting quality sets on the calendar. So that's the thought process behind it, and that's why we want to track it. And there's a couple of other things that we track here for every individual DM setter that we work with, which is how many sets they had scheduled on the closer's calendar for that day specifically, how many were taken, and then how many were closed. What this allows us to do is it allows us to calculate their show rate for each individual DM setter and the close rate, because when you have a team of multiple DM setters, you're going to find out that you're typically going to have 1 or 2 really high top performers with an 80% show rate, 30+% close rate, and then you're going to have 2 people or one, like the other person that's not performing, or the other team members that are not performing as well. And you're basically able to isolate this and isolate those metrics, and then be able to analyze them and reverse engineer whatever the top rep is doing and implement it across the board and turn it into an SOP. From there, we also have revenue generated, new cash, recurring cash, and then hours worked. So that's how we do our reporting. All of our DM setters are sending this to us every single day. It's mandatory. We never have a single day without end of days. It's It's something that we live and breathe and that we live by. We need this data for us to be able to function and operate properly and grow and make progress. This is kind of what it looks like. We use Slack as our main communication platform. This is how it looks like when they send it out. I'm not going to go over the metrics again. We also have them list out the emails here of the calls they book for easy tracking. And this is typically what it looks like. Now, this is the Google Sheet that we use to track all of those numbers, where we can select each individual DM setter. We can see it on a monthly basis. I also have a weekly view, and then I have a daily view as well, where you can see for every DM setter or for particular DM setters, their weekly numbers, their daily numbers. Now, what I'm gonna do for you guys, I'm gonna link this in the description. So if you wanna use it for your business and implement it into your company, all you need to do is just click the link in the description, go to File, make a copy, and it's all yours. You just go into the individual setter tabs, update the numbers for the specific dates, and then you can plug it in and use it right away. By the way, the cool thing about this tracker is we've made it so that it shows every single conversion metric, not only as show rate and close rate as you're typically used to, but we've made it show every single conversion metric from the DM process. So the conversation to call proposal ratio, the call proposal to link send ratio, which basically represents the amount of people that are saying yes to your call proposal, which shows you how effective or how good your call proposal is. And then also the link to call booked ratio. So you can see how efficient your booking link is and how many people are actually booking in after you send them a link. So we have all of those front-end metrics prior to even booking the call that allow you to understand how efficient your department is based on the metrics that I just showed you right here. So now that we went over the metrics, the end-of-day reports, and the tracking, I want to show you how to reverse engineer your numbers. So I'm first going to start by giving you the target KPIs that you want to aim for. In this case, this entire video is all about making $1,000 new cash for every single call that you book. So this is going to be KPI number 1, cash per call booked. We want it to be at $1,000 new cash flat. Then our call proposal to call booking ratio. This is not our excellent KPI, it's just our standard baseline KPI that we then further optimize upon is 60%. So what this means is for every 100 calls that we propose, we would book 60 calls in. Then our conversation to call proposal ratio, pretty standard, is 25%. We have teams operating at 40% and higher, but typically it's around 25%. If this is below 25%, you have a problem, and we're gonna talk about that in the next section here of the video in a second. The next thing here is the inbound to outbound conversations split. So this is super interesting because remember how I showed you here, we have two sources. We have this, which is inbound, and then we have this, which is outbound. So the healthiest split that you could have here is you want 50% of your new conversations, excuse my handwriting here, I'm just using a mouse, coming from outbound, and then another 50% coming from inbound. This is the healthiest way, and this is what's gonna allow you to maximize the scale of your DM department. This is how you're gonna be able to hit $400,000, $500,000, $800,000 months through the DM setter funnel specifically. So you want a 50-50 split between the inbound messages and the outbound messages. And then you want your outbound DM response rate to be 20% or higher. Again, we have teams where this is 40%, 50%, even 60%. I would say this, it's pretty heavily dependent on the personal brand, especially when you're going above 30, 40%. It really matters how strong your brand is. But even if you don't have the strongest brand out there, you should be able to pull 20+% here for your outbound response rate. Now, I want to take a second and reverse engineer this here with you to show you what needs to happen on a monthly basis for you to hit, for example, $500,000 in new cash collected from your DM department. So your cash per booked call, as we said, is going to be $1,000. This is what this entire video is all about, which means for you to make $500K new cash at $1,000 cash per call, you need to book 500 calls. Now, going off of those KPIs here, if you need to book 500 calls and your call proposal to call booking ratio is 60%, that means you need to propose 833 calls. This is just us taking the 500 here from the calls booked, dividing it by 60% to get the next number. And this is how we're going to reverse engineer it. Now, looking at the conversation to call proposal ratio, knowing that we need to propose 833 calls at a 25% standard KPI here, we're going to find out, again, by division, that we're going to need 3,320 new conversations in total. Now, remember what we talked about with the inbound to outbound split. We want that to be 50-50. So what that means is we want 1,660 inbound conversations and we want 1,660 outbound responses. Keep in mind, you don't want to do 1,600 outbound messages, because with outbound, there's another factor that you got to take into consideration, which is the outbound response rate. And at a 20% KPI here with your outbound response rate, you're going to find out that you need to do about 8,300 outbound DMs in order for you to create this many responses. So looking at this is what needs to happen in your DM department, regardless of how many people you have, regardless of how many hours they work, for you to hit 500K new cash. Now, mind you, this is a pretty optimized DM department. If it's your first time doing this, or if you haven't already done this for about 6 to 12 months, it's it's going to be hard for you to operate at those numbers. Achieving this with a DM setter funnel is not easy. It requires a lot of trial and error. It requires a lot of experience. It requires the right people and the right seats, and it requires the entire system to work flawlessly. But it is doable, and this is a great starting point here for you. Now, let's break it down into daily KPIs. So remember how we went over all those metrics? Let's take it, let's divide it by 25 working days, just so you can get a sense of how attainable this is when you have the right people in the right seats and when you have clarity on the metrics. So what you're gonna find out just by taking all those numbers here that we just reverse engineered is that you're gonna need about 66 inbound messages per day. You're gonna need to do about 330 outbound DMs to your followers, to your story views, to your post likes on a daily basis. Again, mind you, this is 25 working days. That's our DM setters. They typically work 6 days a week and then take 1 day off. So this is where this number comes from. You're gonna need about 66 outbound responses. And remember the 20% response rate. You're gonna need 33 calls per post, and you're gonna need about 20 booked calls. Now for this, a very healthy KPI for follow-ups as well, which we haven't really talked much about. In this particular case, you wanna hit about 350. Basically, the thought process behind this is on a weekly basis, what you wanna make sure of is every single lead that you have that didn't end up into a call proposal, a link sent, or a call booking, you wanna make sure you hit a minimum of 4 to 5 follow-ups for every single lead. So if you do the numbers, you're roughly gonna get 350, I think maybe 400 plus, somewhere in that range of follow-ups that you need to do on a daily basis across your DM setter team. Now, the next thing here that I want to talk about is just troubleshooting problems and fixing bottlenecks, because there's 5 main issues here that I've identified throughout the last many years of doing this and throughout the last couple millions of DMs that we've sent across all of our teams that always arise and that always happen. And I have solutions for each of them. So let's start with the first one. The first one is you're just not getting enough inbounds. So for you to get enough inbounds, there's a couple of things that need to happen. The first one is you need to have a clear call to action cadence. So you need to know, okay, on a weekly basis, I'm doing 3 call to actions on the feed post. One of them is going to be an intent-based call to action, such as I'm looking for X amount of people to do X, Y, and Z. And then maybe 2 of them are going to be resource-based call to actions. It can be really anything. I'm not a marketer at heart, so don't take this for granted. I'm just going to using and talking about what our clients are doing, what I'm seeing works well across our client base. And then you want to have a clear story call to action cadence. Story call to actions are insanely powerful because they attract your most engaged viewers, your most engaged followers that then turn into messages through your story call to actions. So the first thing is you want to get clarity on whatever your call to action cadence is going to be. If you're comfortable with more, do more. If you're not comfortable with as many, then you can always keep it at once a week, twice a week. That's completely fine, especially if you have a big audience. That should be enough opportunity to last for the entire week. And then also, as you're working through the outbounds, your DM team should have enough people to work with. So that's the first solution here. The second solution, if that's not enough, just add another weekly call to action. Do another story, do another post. Maybe that's gonna fix it. Typically that fix it, especially if it's not that big of a drop. If it's like a 60-40 split between outbounds being 60, inbounds being 40, or even a 70-30, and we want to get it back to a 50-50, this right here is typically going to fix it. Now, if that's still not enough, hate to break it to you, you just got to get better at marketing, or you just need to be doing more attractive call to actions, or just supplement with more outbounds. Now, if that's still not enough, I hate breaking it to you, but you likely need to get better at marketing, or you just need to have more attractive call to action. If you're using the same washed up resource that you've been using for the last 2 years since you started, or the same VSL that you've been using since you started your company, then people are likely not going to respond as well. I suggest trying a couple of new resources and a couple of different angles, depending on whatever your offer is, starting to promote that on your posts and on your stories, and you're likely going to see the amount of inbounds that you're getting is going to start increasing. Now, if that's still not enough, then you're just going to have to supplement with more outbound, and you're just going to have to accept you're going to have an 80-20 or a 70-30 split between outbounds and inbounds, but you're eventually at some point 12 to 18 months into doing this, you're going to run out of outbounds. Now, I know that's a long way ahead, but still something to keep in mind and not forget. That's problem number 1, and those are the solutions for it. Problem number 2 is your outbound response rate is too low, which I mean is pretty self-explanatory. If this is the case, then what you want to do is you want to test new outbound message openers every week. So we test Monday to Sunday. The reason why is because the way we set up our tracker, we have weekly dashboards where we can clearly compare the weeks right next to one another and clearly see which week performed better. And it's also going to give you enough time and you're likely going to do over 1,000 or so outbound messages, and that's going to be enough for you to kind of test and get an idea of what kind of opener works better. Now, this typically takes 2 to 4 weeks until you find a winner, but it's so worth doing. And the key here thing, at least for us, is we never stop testing. It's not something that we take our foot off the gas and like, yeah, we got a 20% response rate, we're chilling, we're good. No, we're always testing every week, every other week, every month at least. We're running a new test to try and increase it, try and bump it up. because even a 2%, 3% increase, a 2% increase on a 20% response rate is a 10% lift. So for us, especially with volume, when you're doing over 1,000 of those conversations a week, it adds up and it leads to more opportunity to propose calls and book calls, which means more money. So that's solution number one here. Solution number two is you just want to reach out to better people. You might notice that your setters, just for the sake of hitting KPI, they're starting to reach out to people that might not fit the criteria of the people that you want to target. So you might see them reaching out to third world country people, to fake profiles, to people with no profile picture, and so on and so forth. So please make sure when you're doing this, you're also QCing the quality of the people that your DM setters are sending outbound messages to. What we typically go after is we want to make sure they have a first world country name and they just have a decent looking profile picture. We're likely not going to message people with weird usernames, with no profile pictures, or people that are clearly and obviously from third world countries. So that's the second problem, and that's how you fix it. Now, the third problem here, which is very interesting, is you might see that you need too many outbounds. So you might figure out, when you reverse engineer your numbers, because you can't drive enough inbounds, and because you need to have an 80-20 or a 70-30 split between outbounds and inbounds, they're going to have to do 20,000 outbounds a month. Now, I'd love to tell you that's possible, but that's likely not going to be the case because Instagram still has restrictions, still has limitations, and you're also going to burn through your audience way faster that way, which we don't want to do. So if you need to do too many outbounds, or if you find that you need to do too many outbounds, the best way to lower that number is to just get way better at your outbound messages. So you just want to test, and this is going to take some more time until you reach a 30+% response rate or even higher. Again, we have teams that are operating at 40% plus. That means every 100 messages that we send, we get 40 people that respond to us. That's double the efficiency of a 20% response rate. Now, that is not the average. I want to make it very clear. But again, you just got to get better at this. Test a whole lot more messages, test a whole lot more approaches, test voice notes. There's really anything that you could think of that you feel might be applicable to your audience and to your leads until you get a 30+% response rate, because that's going to lower the amount of outbounds that you need. The second thing here is more marketing related, which is you want to drive better, more engaged followers, which basically comes from you creating a stronger brand, which again takes time. I'm not going to dive too deep into this, guys. It's not my cup of tea. I'm not a marketer. I'm a DM setter. I know how to set DMs and I know how to make money from it. I don't know a whole lot about marketing. Again, I'm just stating what works for some of the clients that we're working with. And then number three solution here is just balance with inbounds, right? Which is exactly what we talked about here. Call to action cadence, make sure you got this. Then if those two are in place, it's likely a marketing thing, which you're going to have to figure out. The next problem here is going to be your conversation to call proposal ratio is below KPI. Now, this happens all of the time. There's no other reason for this than just the conversation being way too long. So what you want to do is you want to find ways where you can remove questions from your framework or your script, depending on what you use, without sacrificing nurturing and without sacrificing the goal of the conversation. So what you want to do here is you just want to think, how can you get the same information from the lead, which is their current occupation, their job, what they do for work, how much they make per year right now or per month, do they want to replace, do they want to supplement their income, all that stuff. How can you get all that same information, but with less back and forth? So with you asking less questions, how can you get that same information? If you're able to figure this out and just remove a couple of things that might cause friction in the DMs, you're going to see this shoot way higher. And the reason why is because DM setting is like a downwards ladder, right? So so if you start here, right, then you have 100 people here, and then basically every step down here is a question that you're asking or a back and forth that you're having. We're going to end up with a very low conversation to call proposal ratio. You have 100 leads here that started the conversation. You only have 10 people that you propose the call to. So what you want to do is you want to shorten the amount of steps it takes for you to reach a call proposal. So if you go down from like 10 steps or however many steps you have here to just 6 or 7 or even 5, then you're going to get significantly more people that reach the call proposal stage. Instead of 10 here, as an example, you're going to get 30, which is 3 times more. So it's a big lever that you can pull. But the key here is to not sacrifice nurturing and to not sacrifice you getting the information and extracting the information that you need from the prospect that we just talked about a couple of minutes ago when I was just showcasing the funnel. So that's the main solution here. And the last problem that you're likely to face is your call proposal to call booking ratio is below KPI. So when that is the case, the first thing here, which goes without saying, is make sure you have enough slots available on the calendar. You'll be surprised how many times I've seen DM setters come up to me or someone from my team and be like, hey George, we have no spots available on the calendar. What do we do? If you have no spots available on the calendar, if you only have 3 slots, in 4 days from now, no one's going to book. So your call proposal to call booking ratio is going to tank. It's going to suck. So you want to make sure we have plenty of available spots in the calendar. The other thing here is you want to make sure it makes sense. I've seen so many B2C offers that target 9 to 5ers, and their only times available for calls are literally 9 to 5. And then the problem with that is, how can you expect someone that works a 9 to 5 job, if that's your ideal client, how can you expect them to be able to book a time slot for a sales call between 9 to 5 when they're supposed to be at their job? And then you're going to get a lot of weekend bookings, and then weekend show rate sucks, and then you're wondering why the hell your show rate's so low. Well, it's because your booking window doesn't make sense. You want to make sure you open that up and you have times available in the evening. We've had offers where literally this was the only change that we made, and not only our call proposal to call booking ratio went way up, but our show rate also was significantly higher because we gave people more flexibility and more options, and we made it make sense for their schedule. The second thing here that you want to look at is you might have too many questions on the booking form. So very similar to what we just discussed here in the conversation to call proposal ratio of trimming down the fat. Is there any fat that you can trim down here on your booking form? Are there any unnecessary questions that might cause people to not want to share, to not want to open up, to not want to continue? Maybe it makes people feel like it's redundant, or they're getting asked the same question over and over and over again. So really take a look at this, audit your DM process, audit your booking form, and then see if there's anything that you're getting in the DM process that you don't need specifically in the booking form for the prospect to fill out. You'd be surprised how much this helps sometimes. And then the third thing here, which is probably the most important thing here, is booking link is not mobile friendly. So I've seen so many people that have GHL pages, they have websites with a calendar embedded, and then when you look at it on desktop, it looks great because it's made by a fancy designer, and it's supposed to look great on laptop or desktop, and then when you pull it up on the phone, which by the way, nobody checks, I don't know why, you got to realize 90% of the users and the leads that you speak with are going to be on their phones. No one's fucking using Instagram on their laptop. So no one's going to be on their laptop, everyone's going to be on their phone, and when you pull up your link on your phone, especially if it's embedded in a website or it's a GHL or some sort of custom coding, when you pull it up on the phone, you're going to see it looks weird. People can't scroll properly, it bugs, it stops working, it doesn't work. When they go to fill in the questions, they can't scroll past it, or the website scrolls instead of the widget. Maybe you've experienced this, maybe you know what I'm talking about, maybe not, but I highly suggest you can even pause the video now, pull up your booking form on your phone, and see if you would book in, see if it's mobile friendly. We've had so many cases where the link was not mobile friendly and we made this change, and again, this went way higher. So this basically sums up all the problems here, all the issues, all the bottlenecks that you're gonna face along the way, and then all the solutions. So there's no reason for you to not go out there with everything that I've shared here and everything else that's on my channel. There's literally no reason, if you have an audience, if you're already making money, if you have a successful business and a proven offer, to not go out there and implement this funnel and make significantly more money from it. Now, I'll say this, as I always say, this is going to work best if you have at least 80 to 100,000 followers, you have a proven product, obviously, and a proven sales process. So if you have those two things, you want to chat to me personally about me and my company stepping into your business and building this entire funnel and this entire thing out for you, so you can get to $1,000 cash per call. You can make an additional maybe 100,000 plus per month. Our clients make way more than that, but again, no income claims. Every situation is different. Then you can go in and you can book a call with me. There's a link in the description of this video. It's going to be dmsetting.com/apply. You can go there, you can put in the application. You're going to immediately be prompted to book a call. On that call, we're going to go over your funnel, we're going to go over your metrics, and we're going to discuss implementation of the DM Setter funnel and what it might look like if you were to so choose to move forward with building this entire department out. So that being said, I appreciate you sticking to the end, and I'll see you in the next one.